Make us instruments of your peace.
Where there is hatred, let us sow love.
Where there is injury, pardon.
Where there is doubt,
Faith. Where there is despair, hope.
Where there is darkness,
light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master,
grant that we may not so much seek
to be consoled as to console,
to be understood as to understand,
to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive,
it is in pardoning that we are pardoned,
and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
WESN.
Hello there, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, hello, February. Welcome to a new month, another month that hopefully can lead to positive change through positive discussion. There's a lot happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, January in itself was quite eventful, and there are a lot of ongoing matters that certainly will need addressing. But there are also a number of issues happening across Trinidad and Tobago, which, to a certain extent, have remained silent due to a number of other events taking place. Of course, we'll get into a lot of that later on. But this morning, our first conversation focuses on the cost of lessons, or just in itself the ethics behind after-school lessons. Now, even when I was in school, oftentimes I would hear instances of parents actually stating, well, thank God for after-school lessons. It's the only way that my child passed. In fact, it's often stated from other sources that I've heard from that, well, it seems as though there's a reliance on after-school lessons as compared to the teaching of the curriculum in the classroom. It's just not working out. But this is an issue that was addressed last week, Wednesday, by Parliament's Social Services and Public Administration Joint Select Committee. And I'm joined this morning by the chairman of such, Independent Senator Dr. Paul Richards. Good morning, sir. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Keaton. Good morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Richards, from the meeting and from what was put forward to you, is this a major issue in Trinidad and Tobago where after-school lessons seem to become such a norm that it's heavily relied upon for the curriculum to be administered to students?
Well, first of all, I think people need to understand the context in which the statement was made. It was made after a suggestion by one of the stakeholders who appeared before the committee, suggesting that they are teachers, and we have no confirmation that this is actually so, but it was made after a suggestion by one of the stakeholders. I think it's the president of the Council of Parent Teachers Association, who suggested that there may be some teachers who may have been withholding the delivery of curriculum to ask students to complete it in the after school sessions and pay for that. So the context about whether or not it was ethical was made in that context. In principle, there's nothing wrong with after school lessons. Many students need support, more support than they would get in the classroom, including students who are described as gifted students, to achieve their full potential. So the concept or the principle of extra lessons is not new to Trinidad and Tobago. As you said, you went through it, I went through it. Parents who may feel their child may be weaker in a particular subject discipline may seek extra lessons to give that child support if that child is not doing as well as they think the child should do. So there's nothing wrong with the concept of extra lessons. Where the issue comes in is when a teacher is asking students in their own classroom to pay for extra lessons after the school day is finished. That is the issue. Or I may go as far as say a teacher asking students in the school in which they teach, asking students to pay for extra lessons. That is where the ethical conundrum to me comes in. Not in the concept itself of extra lessons, because extra lessons, and it's not necessarily only for students who are struggling. Very often, parents feel their child is talented in an area and they want to maximize the child's potential in that area, and they seek an external instructor for that child. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, that has been going on for decades. The issue, as I said before, comes in when a particular teacher is asking his or her students in their class to do it, because that has the potential of creating inequality in the classroom. So what happens to the student who also may be struggling, who can't afford those lessons? And
Well,
that's
well,
the issue.
Dr. Richards, your point is very much understood and accepted. So the issue is not necessarily after school lessons itself, but of course, the issue is how a student may actually get involved in after school lessons, whether it be the teacher to a certain extent, coercing them into doing so. But at this time, there is no guidelines or no policy in place to prevent such from happening, which is why I'm asking whether or not this is from what stakeholders would have presented to you and to the Parliament's Joint Select Committee, whether or not this is an ongoing situation, quite a prevalent situation in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I wouldn't know. I wasn't the stakeholder who made the comment. I commented on the potential that is happening. So I wouldn't know. I haven't done a scan or a study to see if it's happening in a prevalent manner or not. So I can't comment and say whether it's happening. We know that I'm sure it's happened once or twice, or it's happening on occasion, but I don't know how prevalent the practice is.
One of the points that were raised during this particular Joint Select Committee meeting was the issue of the curriculum and how the curriculum is being administered. But this is something that has been spoken of previously in respect to what are the next stages for this conversation. How do you propose we go about addressing the issue of the curriculum within the classroom?
Well, I'm caught in a kind of strange position here. Right now, the committee which I chair is investigating the performance of, or the underperformance of students at three major checkpoints: SCA, CSEC, and CAPE. So to for me to make a comment on that would be to presuppose what's going to come out in the committee's deliberations and investigations moving on, and that's not allowed by the standing orders.
Fair enough, a fair point. Do you have a timeline for when you expect this investigation to be completed?
Well, we're hoping sooner rather than later. There are a number of stakeholder groups, including the Ministry of Education, that will come before the committee, and we'll question them on what the state of play is regarding these three major checkpoints, because we have seen some underperformance, some more at the SCA level than the other two levels. But I'm going, even the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Education are on record as saying that there are concerns in some significant area in performance of students at the SCA level, and certainly we have some concerns at the other two levels also. That was the impetus for the committees deciding on having this inquiry, because part of the mandate is to find out how the state is performing in particular sectors, because it has an implication for student development, human resource development, and national development moving forward.
And precisely, would the issue or not rather the issue, because as you said, nothing is wrong with this in principle, but the concerns expressed in respect to after school lessons, is that something that is also going to be covered by the parameters of this particular investigation?
Well, not particularly. The comment was made and there were responses to the comment, and there continue to be responses to the comment, but I think that's just a small part of it. Whether or not the ministry has a policy regarding it, that would be a question to be posed to the ministry or Minister of Education. Find out if there is a particular policy in it. I think I asked a question, but the answer evades me at this point. That is just part of the issue that came up, and I guess the media grabbed onto that. But that's not the primary focus of the committee.
I understand why the media grabbed onto it, though. I mean, being in the media myself and from the comments I've heard, I very much understand why the media has focused on that. But can you please now speak to us about the primary roles and responsibilities of the committee,
Well,
this particular committee?
the committee looks at many social issues, as the name implies, inquiring about. We've done quite a number of inquiries in the past, including investigating whether or not the standards exist where old age homes are concerned, for example. Uh, we've done several education-focused inquiries before, uh, uh, early childhood care inquiries. So it's about looking at situations or sectors in the country and making inquiries in areas that we think there may be gaps existing and trying to get information on the gaps and also doing some analysis and provide recommendations for the improvement in these sectors. So that's the general remit of that and accountability and transparency in some instances also.
In respect to this particular situation across schools, apart from this meeting, as you mentioned, it seems as though the media just grabbed onto this one aspect of the meeting, this one comment that was made, expanded on it a bit further. But what were some of the issues that the stakeholders at this meeting actually brought forward to the Parliamentary Joint Select Committee?
Another issue, it was broadcast on the Parliament channel, so it's public in the public domain now. It's the issue of whether or not there are particular issues related to teacher shortages, because that was one of the issues brought forward by the National Parent Teachers Association, the Principals Association in both the primary and secondary schools, and also whether or not the Student Support Services Division, which has a huge mandate in the Ministry of Education, is adequately resourced or not. Because, I mean, when you think about the mandate of the Student Support Services, which I think when it actually intervenes, it does a very, very good job because the persons employed, they are extremely well qualified. But with the number of, particularly after COVID-19, emotional behavioral problems that have arisen among the student population, the issue of learning disabilities and identification and diagnosis of those and remediation of those on a consistent level, the many social issues that plague families and students. I think the mandate and the load on Student Support Services Division has increased significantly over the years. And if we are to have a productive learning environment and students who are optimized for learning, I think many of those issues have to be dealt with, and a lot of more resources, in my opinion, needs to be put into the Student Support Services Division because it is a critical division in the Ministry of Education. Curriculum delivery is one thing, but it's very difficult for a learner or a student to learn if they're having problems at home, if the home doesn't have adequate nutrition for the student, if they don't have books, if there are poverty issues that abound, if there are abuse issues that abound, so if there's something as simple as transportation to school, having devices, being able to buy books. So learning is a very multidimensional, multi-sectorial endeavor. And I think many of these issues need to be investigated and addressed and help given and support given where necessary so that, as our anthem says, every creed and race can actually find an equal place. And the only way to do that is through education and training.
Dr. Richards, the thing is, some of these issues that you would have just highlighted is quite familiar to us. We've heard time and time again of these issues. Uh, is an investigation at this particular point in time a bit unnecessary in the sense that we know what the issues are, we've just not necessarily addressed them?
Well, yes, in many instances, and there's some that have been addressed. I don't think it's fair to say that none have been addressed. The mere fact that the Ministry of Education has realized that there was learning loss that was experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think invested $10 million in remedial lessons for particular levels of students means that it would be unfair to say that all the issues have not been addressed. But of course, it's education, like any other sector, is a dynamic sector, and there are constant evaluations that need to happen to see if we are making progress, to see if the investment is indeed bearing fruit, and I think that's part of the remit of this and other committees of Parliament.
When this particular investigation is completed, what are the next steps regarding the report of the investigation?
The only requirement of the committee is to complete the inquiry, look at the data as a committee, make recommendations and lay it in Parliament. The minister in any particular committee, the line minister would have an ability, the opportunity to respond, and that is also laid in Parliament. And then it's on to the next inquiry for the committee. And I think the stakeholders and the government will be following up on whatever recommendations are made in some cases if they feel it's applicable.
Is it expected that you would meet with these stakeholders before? Because from what I'm reading here, as you would have mentioned, the National Council of Parent Teachers Association was present at this particular meeting, and so was Tutor by the president of Tutor.
If we're meeting with them again?
Yes. Do you plan to meet with these stakeholders again? Because, as you mentioned, there are a number of issues.
It will depend. We didn't get through a lot of what we planned because the discussion was so rich, but I really can't comment on what's coming next until the committee meets again to decide. But certainly the inquiry would not be a one-off interface with stakeholders. There are other stakeholders planned to appear before the committee to give evidence and engage in discussion.
At this time, as you would have mentioned, the media seemed to have latched on, inclusive of myself. I will admit, I was following this particular meeting, but the issue of lessons in particular is one that concerns quite a number of people. Years ago, there was the issue of teachers charging students for lessons while using school facilities and school resources, and there was, I believe, there's a policy that says that is no longer allowed. The issue now is teachers asking or suggesting or cursing. So that is going to be difficult in itself. Do you think that there's anything?
I don't know that the word of use coercing may be applicable. I haven't heard of teachers. Coercing suggests forcing or intimidating students into taking lessons. You know, I think it's something that's offered. As I said, there's nothing wrong with the principle of lessons. Many students benefit from additional support, but certainly teaching students in your own classroom who you are paid by the state to teach after classes and charging money, I think it's unethical. And I'm surprised actually that the wider discussion or part of the discussion in the media carried didn't focus on the issue of teacher shortages, which was quite a lengthy discussion at the committee, because I think that is a more critical issue.
And that is understood. But for my position, for example, time and time again, I've actually covered that conversation, whether it be with the NPTA or with Tutor or with the other various school boards. The issues of teacher shortage is quite incredible. This is why I think that there's been a lot of focus in respect to lessons, because as you would have mentioned, to a certain extent, it can cause inequality within a classroom. But there are a number of factors that can actually contribute to inequality in the classroom. So your point is very much taken this morning. But Dr. Richards, I want to thank you for joining us on the program. As you mentioned, there's not much that could be stated at this point because of the ongoing investigation. But certainly when those recommendations are made following the completion of this investigation, I look forward to welcoming you back to the program to discuss them at length.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Keaton, and to you and your listeners, have a great day and be safe.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Richards. All the very best to you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break on the program. As I said, there's lots to discuss. And we thank Independent Senator Dr. Paul Richards for joining us this morning, Chairman of the Parliament's Social Services and Public Administration Joint Select Committee. This particular report, we certainly look forward to, and the recommendations on the part of the committee to address a number of issues within our education sector certainly is something that I look forward to seeing, I look forward to reading, and certainly look forward to discussing. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Bobby, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning as we get into our next conversation, which focuses on our security forces. And we're using that term broadly this morning because this is not just focused on the TTPS, but a number of forces that fall under the Ministry of National Security. And there is a lack of trust. There is, to a certain degree, a lack of accountability. And is it because of a lack of oversight? Whilst some of these institutions should remain independent, there are now question marks as to whether or not it needs to be a man with a whip behind them. You know, in local terms, that's what we see. But let me get into this conversation this morning as I welcome my next guest, Member of Parliament for Mearu, Mr. Russian Parry. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to your viewers and listeners, and thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you for joining us. Well, the issue of trust and accountability has been a conversation we've been having for a number of years, but it just seems to have peaked. It seems to have climaxed following the arrest and what now seems to be the dismissal for police Commissioner Ule Edward Christopher. But it raises a number of problems, and it just highlights the issue in respect to trust and accountability.
Well, let me start by saying that over the last decade, there has been a total erosion of the trust in public institutions. And unfortunately, it has the fingerprint of the Rowley administration. And I'll give you an example. From day one, there were issues around the judiciary. I mean, if the intervention by the politicians didn't cause it, some of these institutions collapse under their own weight. There were issues around the judiciary and the chief magistrate. You had the intervention of the prime minister at President's house. You had the collapse of the Police Service Commission. Recently, we were at the Privy Council where a law lord had to scold Douglas Mendez concerning the Minister of Finance not being subjected to an investigation with the issue of the Auditor General. We've had an Attorney General's office that has been plagued with scandals, missing files, issues in the United States in the circuit courts. And now to top it off, you have this total mishandling, in my respectful view, of the police commissioner. Now, you raise the matter of scrutiny and public scrutiny. And while our Constitution does provide for some constitutional scrutiny, and I'll just tell you it quickly. You have the Joint Select Committee on National Security, which they have the power to summon agencies and ask questions and so on. Then you have the National Security Council, which is led by the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, the Attorney General, and several other cabinet ministers. You have the Police Complaints Authority, and then internally in the TTPS, you have the Professional Standards Bureau, and I suspect in the Defense Force and Coast Guard and so on, you have their own Judge Advocate General systems where they can do their own investigations. Now the question is, have these entities, organizations, been doing what is required to maintain the trust among the general public in believing or trusting these organizations? And what you find is that in each organization, there's some inherent weaknesses. And I'll give you an example as well. So at the Joint Select for National Security, that is the parliamentary arm that scrutinizes our security forces. So they can summon any agency. They can see a newspaper headline this morning and summon those agencies tomorrow. However, these committees have no punitive power. They have no power to give direct instructions. They can investigate, they can ask for documentation, they can bring out issues in the public.
Mr. Barry, I'm sorry to interject.
Sure.
We're just being asked to take a quick break on our end. Forgive me for having to cut you, but we'll continue this conversation shortly. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen.
No problem.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us. Mr. Parry, we return to your response as you were speaking about the scrutiny and whether or not the institutions that exist that allow for such, if they are doing their duties.
Yeah, so I was just talking quickly, and I'll speed it up a bit in terms of the National Security Council. So we spoke about the parliamentary scrutiny, which is the Joint Select on National Security, with limited powers, more of interrogation, inquiry, but no punitive powers. They can't give instructions and so on. What they can do is write a report to the Minister of National Security to be laid in the Parliament at some point in time down the road. So then you have the National Security Council, which can summon all the heads of all the agencies and find out what's happening. They can query, they can question. They don't have, or they're not supposed to have what you call operational powers in the TTPS, Defense Force, Coast Guard. No minister or no prime minister could say, listen, I'm hearing something odd about Parry in my area and I want you to go down by his house and check him out. What the National Security Council will do is give general directions, policy that is in line with government policy. So this is where the gray areas are, because now you have an agency which is politically minded. So it's the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, cabinet ministers, and they are now boundaried by a political agenda. So that brings out a bit of mistrust at the end of the day to the man on the street. Then you have the two agencies inside of the police service. If you're looking at the police service, which is your Police Complaints Authority, where the general public can raise matters on police behavior. And then last of all, you have the Professional Standards Bureau, which investigates police misconduct internally. So you'll ask lastly, what's the role of the Police Service Commission? The Police Service Commission has been watered down to the point where their only function is to decide who becomes commissioner and DCP. That is what the function they've left with. So if you have to ask me in terms of scrutiny, we are way behind the 8 ball, and that there is nothing that has been building confidence in the citizenry that the behavior and the actions of our security agencies is in line with what is expected. And I think that issue of mistrust keeps growing and growing and growing.
Well, this, as you would have pointed out, the institutions that actually exist that should allow for scrutiny at times are also bounded by politics. And I think that in itself does not augur well with the general public. However, even when it comes to the TTPS, internally they have their Professional Standards Bureau, but that in itself is operated by police officers. So you have police officers who are actually policing their members, their other colleagues within the service. Again, it seemed as though it's set up or designed in a way where trust and accountability are just words that we used. How do we now focus on creating an independent organization that will give independent reporting, even to the extent that these reports could be laid in Parliament, but they don't necessarily have to be adopted?
Well, you see, it comes back to the culture in small island developing states, you know. Is anyone truly independent at the end of the day? Now, I am telling you, we do have public officers who are very professional in the TTPS, in the fire services, in all arms. There are men and women, public officers who can be held to the highest amount of scrutiny and integrity. But what you find happening is that constitutionally over the years, I think we've watered down these institutions. In the United States, the New York City Police has an office of the Inspector General, which is an independent office that oversees the New York City Police. You would notice lately in the United States under the new administration, there's a big issue that a lot of these inspector generals, these offices, the candidates are being removed and replaced by political appointees. So it really shows that, you know, it's not unique to Trinidad, where you find the political reach is getting into independent institutions. I'll give you a very quick example. This whole issue with the Commissioner of Police is very, very troubling, because to the man on the street, you know, we were out about our business on Thursday, and on social media was alight with WhatsApp messages, hearsays that the Commissioner of Police has been detained, a lot of issues. There was no word from the Prime Minister, there was no word from the Attorney General, no word from the National Security Minister. A lot of hearsay, only to be told sometime in the evening via some media reports that yes, the police commissioner has been detained for questioning. Now, what is funny to me is that on Friday morning you had this press conference where you know, DCP Martin came out and said yes, the commissioner was arrested and being held for questioning. Now, being arrested and detained for questioning, that's a serious thing. It means that somebody has advised you to go arrest the highest office holder in the TTPS, and one would have to be very, very careful to say, well, look, I'm going to arrest this person. I can't shoot from by my hip. I must have all the relevant evidence to continue crossing the T's, dotting the I's, to lay a formal charge. Only to be told on Saturday morning, the Honorable Commissioner of Police has been released with no charge. And if we were to take what Senior Counsel Pamela Elder said, one, there was no evidence against her. Two, a junior officer couldn't be the complainant. None of her subordinates, DCPs, ACPs, were willing to lay the charge. And then my question is, I understand the DPP chased them out of the office. What foolishness you brought here for me? So today there's a letter to the editor on one of the newspaper asking the question, if there was not an attempted coup in the TTPS to remove the Commissioner of Police. So all of this in the public domain is just adding to the mistrust. And democracies are strengthened by strong independent institutions. What we have is a weakening of every institution over the last decade, and that mistrust is not helping the country move forward in any way. If I was the chairman of the Joint Select Committee on National Security, I would this morning summon the heads of the TTPS to ask them exactly why this matter was handled in this way. I mean, one would believe that the Commissioner of Police is the way it was handled, a crime kingpin. You know, and to the man on the street, to me, listening and reading what was happening with regards to the connection with the SSA and the license for the sniper rifles, to me, that's an administrative error, administrative blunder. Whether the commissioner had oversight or not on it, we don't know. But the way how the matter was handled, you swear to God that the police commissioner is the head of some crime ring in this country, and the kind of furor that came out in the media. So this morning, the country is weaker. We are an embarrassment in the Caribbean. CARICOM is looking at us and laughing. And then to just icing the cake, which I will segue for 10 seconds, Jamaica going on supply us a million barrels of crude oil. You understand the nonsense that's going on in this country, and we are being embarrassed all over the place? That's where we are this morning.
Mr. Parry, you said we are weaker this morning. I follow up by asking, how weaker can Trinidad and Tobago become at this point, prior to the police commissioner being arrested, and then what now seems to be her removal from office? Public trust and confidence in the TTPS at its last examination was about 8%. 8%. That's an incredible figure. 8%. Now we don't know exactly the demographics and and you know, the exact nature of the study in respect to who participated, etc., etc. But 8% is still an incredible figure as it relates to trust and confidence. Would you say that this morning that all that has been diminished?
I think we may be down to 1% this morning. You know, there's a saying that when you hit rock bottom, well, I think we're on granite this morning. The good thing about hitting rock bottom is that you can only go up. So what is curious, I mean, my curiosity lies, while the police commissioner was being detained and questioned, the police service commissioner write a letter to the president saying, change the lady. So they saw guilt. They found the police commissioner guilty at that point in time on Friday, that it was sufficient to tell the president, look, we had two persons to bring as acting commissioner and acting DCP on Friday evening or Friday night. I mean, they have to be the most efficient public service organization in Trinidad and Tobago. And these are the questions that fueling the mistrust. They are already a mistrusted organization with a lot of the politics as the Police Service Commission. Where do we go from here this morning? I think that the Joint Select on National Security ought to bring all of them inside the parliament this week and get to the bottom of this nonsense and try and rebuild back some trust and confidence, because we're in a state of emergency. The murders are still happening one a day. I think we're up to about 25 or 26 today. You know, in a state of emergency, where is the visibility? I will leave Parliament 11 o'clock in the night and come to Mayara and I will see 2 police cars. Up to today in my travels for this month, I haven't seen any joint army police patrol in our town centers. Now, they maybe have, but I haven't seen it. So if we're in a state of emergency to clamp down crime in this country, we are losing the optical and psychological war against the criminal element. We're not putting the fear in them. Something is absolutely wrong from the head come right back, and we need to have a comprehensive overhaul of every single thing that we're doing.
You said we are losing, you know, I would say to a certain extent, and this is me expressing my personal opinion from more reports, from with conversations with my people, we've lost. We've lost. But as I said, that is my opinion from discussions and from reports. Mr. Parry, you yourself answered where you think we should go from here, but joint select committee meeting, I mean, is that really going to bear any sort of fruit at all? Like, as you said, these are things that existed prior to state of emergency. These are things that existed when it was revealed that there was an 8% public trust and confidence in the TTPS. These are things that existed when we heard of issues with the Defense Force and Defense Force soldiers participating in alleged criminal activity. This is something that existed before. So what's the point in it now? There should obviously be something done to address it. But a joint select committee meeting, is that really the most effective way?
So no, but that's the tools that we have. What do we do? Do we sit by and do nothing until, you know, a state of utopia is achieved and, you know, everything is perfect? So that's the tools that we have. That's the tools that were given. But again, the government had the last decade. We spent $60 billion in national security in 10 years, and we only had 3 boats working. We spent $60 billion in national security. We do not have a forensics lab, a properly run forensics lab. We still have a judiciary where magistrate courts don't have toilet paper and paper to print. So, you know, how are we going to fix operational issues? With the operators of the crime fighting apparatus, I mean, we had in 2010 to 2015 under the People's Partnership, there were these 3 Augustus Westland or 4 Augustus Westland choppers that were purchased. There was a considerable benefit in the fight against crime. As government changed in 2016, the maintenance cost was too high. We didn't have money to scrap them. Now, look where crime has taken us. You know, there are so many areas that the government has for why it is ballistics taking 5 years, 10 years. And I just want to segue back the issue of this commission of police, right? So our remand yard is filled with men and women waiting 3, 5, 8, 10 years for their day in court. I ask the question every time. When the police, there is an art, there is a format. You get intelligence, you convert the intelligence to evidence, you have substantial evidence that you can go before the State Council, the DPP, and say, hey, I have enough evidence, I can bring a charge. And if you bring a charge, you get to go to court the next day. My question is, why are men and women in this country being charged with insufficient evidence, and then you stay in remand yard for 5-6 years? If you don't go in as a criminal in remand yard, you're coming out as one. And that is my challenge. So in this case, you telling me you went and arrested the police commissioner, you detained her for questioning, and you don't have enough evidence to take her to court Monday morning? So what are you going to do? You're going to arrest her, charge her, and put her in remand yard? It is really the symptomatic issue here of laziness, I would say, on the part of members of the TTPS to not do proper investigation, and don't expedite charging people for political purposes, for whatever purpose. Have sufficient evidence that you can take before a magistrate on Monday morning or Tuesday morning and charge the person and get them into the system within 90 days and get them out. Either they're in jail or they're free. You know, today we have 500 police officers before the courts, getting full pay or half pay or three-quarter pay. Many good officers, senior officers, detectives, and so on, who are before the courts and they can't work. And that's a strain on the police service. And not only that, it erodes confidence in the citizenry as well. But get these fellas before the courts, get some night courts going, process their matters. So there's so many things that can be done. We need good legislation. We need some improvement on it. And we need the political will to make things happen. And that is not happening, Keaton.
Before I get to political will, coming back to the issue of the Commissioner of Police, you know, from the reports that are being indicated that the Police Service Commission has nominated Deputy Commissioner of Police Junior Benjamin to act as Commissioner of Police, and Assistant Commissioner of Police Kurt Simon to act as Deputy Commissioner of Police, as Benjamin becomes the acting Commissioner of Police. But how do you address now the nation trusting these officers after what transpired last week? No charges were laid. It's you know, as you mentioned, there are question marks surrounding whether or not there was actually a coup within the TTPS. How do you now build confidence and trust from the same officers who did not lay any charge, you know, who refused to sign on as complainants against Earl Edward Christopher in this particular investigation?
Well, and therein lies the problem. All we're doing, we're shuffling the deck. And it is the very same players whose own, you know, respect has been shattered. I mean, the country has lost respect in these officers this morning. They lost respect. They lost respect. They've gone into a cycle of mistrust. And then the Police Service Commission, and I mean, I think when Mr. Manning and Mr. Pandey in 1995, that era, they came up with this new way of selecting a police commissioner. The hope was that, you know, there would be less politicization of the position, the office holder. But it has been watered down over the years, and what you have is a very constricted way now of appointing a police commissioner. Look in the United States, if you watch these congressional hearings, you are grilled. You are asked every question known to man before we commit you to the office. All we do here in Trinidad, we pull up your resume and we debate your resume. That's what's going to happen on Wednesday. We're going to pull up the resume of these two officers and we're going to debate their resume. And if there is one or two things in the public domain about them, we will debate that on Wednesday. But we don't get a chance to ask them a question. And the fact that they were participants in this failed action against the police commissioner, in my respectful view, they've lost all credibility. And now what we're going to do, we're going to put back one of these same men as the head of the TTPS. How does that resound with the junior officers, with the men under them, who are looking at it from a very surreptitious point of view, that according to the letter to the editor today, that these men try to overthrow their own commissioner of police. So that is where it's going to be very difficult for the population to accept and to agree that this is the best way forward, but that's the tools that we have, that is the playing field that we have, and unless we don't change those things, we'll remain in the same park with the same issues.
Now, coming back to your point of in respect to political will, you'd have mentioned $60 billion has been spent on national security. One would argue the majority of that is recurrent expenditure. In respect to the political will, though, national security and issues of national security has always been a very difficult subject, and it seems as though that we've lost ideas. So, is it that we keep speaking about political will when there is really very little options that are left for the government, given to the extent that the criminal element has evolved and has become so brazen, so bold, and should I say very much well resourced?
Swift justice is what is needed in this country. The perception of swift justice raises the confidence level in the citizenry to partner with the police. Now, there is no swift justice. There is an immense sense of inequality before the law. Those things, combined with the fact that the operators are having issues, police need resources, the judiciary needs resources, the prison system needs resources. So it's like a whirlwind of issues. And the best intention of the government is being compressed and weakened because I think the focus on some of these issues that I have raised, either it is not being addressed properly. One, the political will is one, but a heavy political will interferes with votes. So that is something that, you have a serious issue with when you have the political ideology interfering with what you need to do and what is right. Because if I interfere with certain things, I'm going to lose my vote. And I mean, when you listen to the general public, you talk about the influence of big business. I don't like to use the word 1%, but the influence of big business, the influence of those who have political connections. So to the man on the street, he sees an inequality before the law. How do we address that? Those are philosophical views, and my take is swift justice. If I know a police officer breaks the law, he should be in and out in 90 days, either in jail or he back at work. If somebody goes before the courts on a petty issue, it goes in, gets out quickly. But when you put a man, his child, in remand yard for 8 years, 5 years, 6 years, and the police are ready, the man gone on vacation, we can't get a ballistic, we can't get a fingerprint. And every time you go to court, every week, mother going, father going, sister and brother going, you have to pay a taxi, reach to wherever the court is. That is not how you build trust and confidence in your judiciary and your judicial system. And those things, I don't think it's high-hanging fruits. I think those things are low-hanging fruits that can be addressed, but you need the political will. You need people who has a worldview, not a constrained, constricted view on what is in it for me or what is right for me and my political organization, but what is right for the country and how do we take Trinidad and Tobago forward, especially in the kind of mess we find ourselves in today.
Mr. Parry, my final question to you is, do you think that Tobago has the capability at this point that in time that we find ourselves in and where we are as a nation, do you think that we are able to acquire the resources that are necessary to address the plethora of issues of which you raised this morning? Because it's not just with the protective services, as you would have mentioned, issues with the DPP, issues as it relates to forensics and ballistics, issues as it relates to the court system. These are issues which currently are very much understaffed and under-resourced, whatever the case may be. It's going to take quite a lot of investment to even bring it back up, and you're seeing to expand it even further. So could we do that? Is that something that is realistically achievable?
Yes, it is. I do believe we have the capacity, we have the resources to fix our problems in this country. I do not believe for 1 minute that we need to import help. We understand our culture better than anybody else. So bringing a consultant from the United States or the United Kingdom, they can solve our problems. What do we need? We have very good, well-trained people in this country. We have good public officers. You ask about money, right? You asked about money. Where are we going to find money to find these things? We had to find money to live for the next 10, 15, 20 years in this country, right? It requires discipline. You know, there's a conversation I always have in you know, when we talk economics. Can you borrow your way out of debt? Yes, you can. But you have to have discipline when you borrow money to fix the problems. We do have a considerable amount of money in our HSF. We have about $6 billion. Our foreign reserve are about 5.5 billion US dollars. We do have a healthy cash system in the commercial banks. We have between $8 and $10 billion at the commercial banks. So financially, we're in a good, strong place to take immediate action to resolve our problems. But my question is that we have Minister Imbert, who really has mismanaged and mishandled so many issues over the last 10 years. Sing and dance every year for the budget, about you can see clearly now a new vision, and nothing has changed because the money keeps spending in the wrong places, right? So I know why we ordered the 1 million barrel of special marine fuel from Jamaica, because the fleet of Coast Guard vessels that are being repaired, and some in Suriname, and the one or two that has to go, they need low sulfur diesel to operate. So I understand why we need it. But we closed down Petrotrin under dubious circumstances when we could have been making the low sulfur diesel to put these vessels back out on the world. So it's really, you know, it's like, you know, you're chasing your tail in this country, and we keep chasing our tails, and nobody is sitting down with a holistic plan. One feeds into the other, into the other, into the other. And we start at some point, and we will get there. So to answer your question, I believe in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the people, we have the resources, we need to find the right leadership, the right decision makers, and then they have to have the fortitude to go through with it, no matter the consequences. And if it means we have to make decisions in this country politically that will make you lose office in 5 years, well, we have to do that, because it ain't gonna be easy going forward in this country. We have a general elections this year. And whoever takes the helm of this country, whether it's the UNC or the PNM, it is not going to be rainbows and skittle-skeetan. We will have to make some hard decisions. So it's how we manage this process going forward. We must look after the most vulnerable in the society, and then we must hold the hands of the balance of citizens and say, listen, we will walk you through in the hard times ahead, and we will get over this. I totally believe in the country.
Mr. Parry, I want to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for the extended conversation, of course. And at this time, we pause on this particular conversation, and we return to where you left off in respect to the difficult decisions ahead from whoever the next government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is. But at this time, sir, we end it here. And thank you very much, of course. All the very best to you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. Stay with us. We've got quite an informative discussion coming up with our next guest, so stay tuned. You heard of the Council for Responsible Political Behavior. Well, the United National Congress has withdrawn from it, but according to the chairman, you're withdrawing exactly from what? But you do have question marks. Exactly what does the Council for Responsible Political Behavior do? What is its mandate, and is it actually achieving anything as a council? Let's get into that conversation after this break.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
Because vision doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me
you?
how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we're exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning. So, as I would have mentioned before our last break, this particular conversation is an informative one as we speak to the chairman of the Council for Responsible Political Behaviour, Dr. Bishnu Raghunath, trying to figure out exactly the role, the responsibility of the council, their mandate, and to get more information on their code of conduct. This, of course, following the exit of the United National Congress, the withdrawal, NEIC, of the United National Congress from the council. But Dr. Raghunath has responded to that since that letter became publicized. So let's speak more so on the council this morning. Dr. Raghunath, good morning. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and I will try to answer as many questions as I can. But bear in mind two things. One, that the council is guided by a code, and as that, in fact, the council is a creature of the code. And saying that it is a creature of the code directs when the council could operate. So as far as I'm aware, as at this point in time, the council is at rest. There is no council operating. So I am not even sure that I should be speaking as chair of the council because the council is not in operation. I could tell you as a previous chair of the council, yes, what the council was about and so on, but the council will only become operational when an election date is announced, or if not by the beginning of May, when we are 3 months into an election period.
Well, actually, Dr. Raghunath, thank you for already actually starting the conversation that way, so to give us an idea of the operations of the council. But coming back to what you said, the actual role of the council, could you speak more to that as per when the council is in operation, when it convenes, exactly what is its roles and responsibilities?
Okay, so when the council is in operation, in an election period, the council is supposed to be to monitor the adherence of political parties and, well, the campaign literally as they go into the election, and to monitor that as to the extent to which they adhere to the clauses and the specifications of the code. The code presents various issues. For instance, there's the code of conduct. There's what could be deemed to be prohibited conduct, and if parties are engaging in what is deemed to be prohibited conduct, the council will then now call out those parties and inform the population through the media that there are breaches to the code. The council has no power of sanction. Let me just emphasize that. The council has no power of sanction. The code is not, in fact, a legal document per se. It is a document that was created by civil society, which parties were invited to ratify. Having ratified the code, the parties are then expected to uphold the code. So it is in that perspective that we say that the council, all we could do is monitor, and should there be any breaches of the code, we bring it to the attention of the population through the media.
Just to clarify that last point, from what you're suggesting, is that the council has no powers to discipline a party in any way.
Absolutely none.
Mm-hmm. Now, in that regard, this code that you speak of, I know you probably can't go into the code in detail and its entirety, but generally speaking, what is this code? What parameters does it actually cover?
Okay, so things it covers the parameters, for instance, of what we call prohibited conduct, how politicians should behave and what they should be saying from the platforms, how their membership should behave, and what should happen and what should not happen, and how should they treat with other things. Let me give you some simple examples. One, the code suggests that it is prohibited that politicians should engage in mudslinging, character assassination, those sorts of things. The code also talks about the language that politicians should use, all in an attempt to keep the standard of our elections at a respectable level. The focus should really be on policies and that are proposed by parties and the focus of an election campaign should be on the policies that the party would like to implement or roll out, as well as the criticisms of other parties should be on the parties, not on the individuals, not on the character of the members of the other parties and so on. So that is like the prohibited conduct. Another aspect, for instance, and it goes straight from the conduct of politicians on the platform all the way to for instance, there's an aspect of the code which tells you that, you know, I should not, or any political party should not be defacing the property of anybody else. So in fact, you know, as we come to election time, you go and post up a lot of your posters and whatever else on people's walls and so on. That is prohibited. You should not be doing that. I mean, if you have permission, yes. If you don't have permission, you just can't go and paste up your poster on somebody's wall. So those are the kinds of things that the council, the code suggests that we should monitor and thereupon advise if parties are breaching the code. There are other aspects of the code. So for instance, how should political parties treat with the media? What sort of reaction should parties have in terms of what is being publicized or broadcast on the media? And those are sorts of things that the code really focuses upon. And the council now is there to say whether or not we are adhering to the code. The big issue has always been in the council monitoring process is simply what is the language that is being used on the campaign, and to the extent to which the politicians are maintaining the code, or whether they are letting themselves be brought down into things like racial prejudices, social prejudices, and whether they are using that on the platform. Do we want anybody telling us that we need to project racial biases? No. But again, those things do happen. How your banners and your posters and your messaging, are your messaging clean to the extent that they're not going to promote racial tensions in the society? And that's what the council is about, trying to keep the election as clean as possible, keep the language as clean as possible, and not further divide the society.
No, this particular code, well, you said that it was something that was developed by civil society organizations. When was this code exactly written, and what are some of these civil society organizations that you speak of that have come together to create this code?
Okay, so way back in 2014, the Chamber of Commerce, the interreligious organization, several trade unions, the Transparency Institute, the network of NGOs by the women's movement, and various religious denominations existing in Trinidad and Tobago came together. So for instance, the Mahasabha, the Ashra, the Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, all of these churches, plus the IRO, plus the Chamber, the Publishers and Broadcasters Association, they all came together. They drew up this code. This was in 2014, long before the 2015 election. They drew up the code. They then invited the political parties, the 5 major political parties at that time, I think was the PNM, the UNC, the COP, the MSG, and the COP, and the ILP, sorry. And they all came together, the leadership of those parties all came together and ratified that they will abide by this code. So the UNC came out way back in 2014, along with the PNM, and the other smaller parties came and ratified the code. It was only after the code was ratified by these parties that those founding organizations that I talk about, the civil society organizations, then attempted to put together a council to do the monitoring. And that is how the council was formed. So that is where the civil society organizations came together. And since 2014, in fact, the first council was appointed in, I think, February or March of 2015, as we went into the 2015 general election. And the council has been in existence since then. In the early days, and I should say this, so this is one of the things that I want to clarify when we talk about the UNC withdrawing from the council. In the early days, in the first code, so to speak, between 2014 and 2019, there was provision on the council for political parties to sit. Remember, there were only 5 major political parties. Those 5 major political parties each had a representative on the council. However, between 2015 and 2019, we now had a multitude of other parties. So now I think we have probably about 12 or 13 political parties who came in and signed on into the code between that the 2015 election and afterwards. So it became unmanageable and untenable for the council to continue with representatives of each and every political party. So in 2019, the founding organizations redesigned the council, so to speak, and now has supposedly independent people on the council, not political representatives. So when, for instance, the UNC came out and said they're withdrawing from the council, since 2019, they have not sat on the council. No political parties sit on the council. So it became kind of questionable as to exactly what are they withdrawing from. Are they really withdrawing from the council, or are they saying they are not going to abide by the code? And that is where our concerns rise. What exactly have they withdrawn from? They could not have withdrawn from the council of which they are not a member.
Now, in that regard, Dr. Raghunath, could a political party still face the scrutiny of the council or the oversight of the council to whatever the parameters allow for in respect to oversight? Could a party that has not ratified this code of conduct still face that sort of scrutiny?
What we are doing is monitoring an election. A party who says that they have not ratified the code, we have no problem with that. But if, for instance, a party breaches clauses of the code, again, like I said, we had no power of sanction. All we could do is simply identify where those breaches occurred and ask the media to publicize it. So it is in that context that, yes, although the party may have withdrawn, we are still monitoring an election campaign. And if we are monitoring an election campaign and a party breaches the code or is reported to have breached the code, we will look at it and there say whether or not this is a breach of the code of ethical political conduct, and this is the clauses, or these are the clauses which have been breached. That's all we have done, and that's all we could do. And to use that by way of example, in 2019, when parties were invited to sign the revised code, Philip Alexander of the PP was invited. He came into the meeting and apparently told the organizers there and there that he's not signing, and that was his right. Following his withdrawal from the meeting, other parties would have signed on. Like I said, we now have about 12 parties which are signatories. But in 2023, when there were breaches, when there were in the campaign for the local government elections, apparently people complained that Philip Alexander and the PP were breaching the code. Well, we in fact looked at what the complaint was, accepted that it was legitimate in accordance with the code, and ensure that when we issued a media release, saying that these were the issues that we are picking up in the election campaign. We did, however, mention that Philip Alexander and the PDP could have been in breach of the code. That's as much as we could do. We can't do anything more. And that is anybody's right that they don't like what you're doing, and they could come out and they could say what you're doing, or they agree with, what they don't agree with. So that is the challenge that we are going to continue to face. It doesn't matter whether you have ratified the code or not. If something happens, we will see it. End of story.
Can any citizen, ordinary citizen, actually bring forward a complaint to the council?
That is how we get our material in which to treat with as we go into the campaign. Think about it. We are 9 members, 9 independent people who are doing pro bono work, voluntary. We do not have the capacity to monitor every piece of social media. We will monitor, for instance, what is being publicized or broadcast on the traditional media. Look at the newspapers, look at some of the television stations, and if a campaign meeting is being broadcast, fine. So that's all that we will do. We, however, at the start of every monitoring season, invite the population. If you have any complaints, please send them to us. Send them to us, not only a complaint. So we don't want to hear PNM breaching the code. We want to hear the complaint, and we want you to also tell us if you have specifics or if you have any other supporting data, please send it to us. So for instance, at PNM meeting so and so in Sawa in the Kweze, this was said by this member of parliament. And that we will now go back and look for that particular issue and review it. If, however, we don't have access to it, we can't review it. So we are dependent upon the citizenry to tell us what the concerns are, and then we will respond accordingly.
And you mentioned that the members who sit on the council do this work pro bono?
Definitely. Again, this is a civil society organization. We are not paid by the state. We are not, for all intents and purposes, they have approached me. They have approached other members. In fact, as at this point in time, we are waiting for confirmation from one other member who, following the last term, has asked to withdraw from the council. Because of their own personal issues. And we are now waiting for the founding organizations to confirm who is the replacement member. In the midst of the 2023 local government election, for instance, and we have to note it, a member of the council passed in the midst of the election. Mind you, the day before, he sat at a meeting with us and confirmed certain positions that we were adopting, and the next day he passed. The council couldn't do anything about that. We had to wait until the founding organizations replaced him. But all of these people who serve on the council do so purely voluntarily. So yes, we do get a lot of licks and criticisms from the general population and from political parties, but we see this as our role to play in trying to get our democracy at a better place in Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly who determines when the council is convened? Who determines when the council comes together and operates?
The code specifically states that the council can only monitor 3 months prior to an election, or in the event. So let me just start there. 3 months prior to an election. The last election we had was in August 2020. So 3 months prior to that will take us to May 2020. If an election is not called by May 2020, then the council will go into operation. If, however, the Prime Minister, which is his right, comes tomorrow and says, I am dissolving Parliament, we know that once he says he's dissolving Parliament, the election must be held within a matter of 90 days from the dissolution of Parliament. And if he says he's dissolving Parliament, the 3 months kicks in from that specific date. So that is the 3-month period that we talk about as being the election period.
Final question, Dr. Raghunath. Do you think that the council has been effective in what it is mandated to do? Does it have the influence as it was hoped to have when it was established in 2014?
When we were established in 2014, we noted full well that it will take time for the council to be, one, accepted by the general population, and more importantly, for the political parties to adhere to the rulings of the council and to abide by the code. We noted that, and we said that probably 10 years or 15 years that will happen. We note, for instance, and I could use examples to illustrate, in 2015, in the election, we once cited Rudal Munilal as having breached the code, and the next time he went on a political platform, he actually said it. I have been censured by the council, so I will try and watch my language. Now, that was 2015. We noted that in 2023, in the local government elections, the PNM, and particularly so Keith Rowley as Prime Minister, one of the people who in 2014 personally signed on and ratified the code, in 2023, he chastised and criticized the council, saying that we were biased. In fact, his fingers were largely pointed towards me as chairman, saying that I am biased. Notwithstanding that, the PNM the next day after the criticisms came out and says that they will continue to support the council. In saying that, the PNM said that in 2023, and that we were chastised by the Prime Minister. I would note that in 2023, and I have no fear of contradiction of saying this, in 2023, the majority of our complaints that we got came from the UNC. So it was interesting when it was the UNC who decided that they're going to withdraw, because the majority of the complaints that we got and we treated with came from them. Kirk Mayhew wrote us nearly once a week or twice a week. So, and more importantly, we dealt with all their issues. So when they decided to withdraw, whatever they withdrew from, we have accepted it. That's their right. But the point about it, the mere fact that political parties, and when I talk, for instance, about political parties in 2023, we got complaints from the UNC. We got complaints from the PNM. We got complaints from Gary Griffith and the NTA. And we got complaints from citizens as well. So we were getting complaints from a wide range of people, and we dealt with them. So we could only say that people have taken us seriously. But I should also say, as I say this, when Keith Rowley and the PNM criticized the council in 2023, the media fraternity in Trinidad and Tobago, and especially the 3 daily newspapers, all came out with editorials promoting the work of the council and saying that this is something that the country needs. Until most recently, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago, MSJ leader David Abdullah was actually saying, as well as I think from the leader of the Hope, was actually saying that this council should have been, this code should be enshrined in law. Unfortunately, no government has attempted to consider that, but that's, as far as we are concerned, we will continue to do voluntary work for the development of the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago.
Dr. Raghunath, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Thank you for your time and for really bringing us to light as per the work and the operation, even the procedures as per how the Council for Responsible Political Behavior acts in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Good
All
morning.
the very best to you, sir. Take care. I'd like to also thank all the members who work on the council when that council is convened, of course, and for the work that has been done in the past. Dr. Raghunath indicating that their work, of course, is done pro bono. Interestingly enough, the Code of Conduct was created by civil society organizations. So, in itself, the influence of the council, to me, in my opinion, is something that we should not undermine at all. And the mere fact that CSOs have come together and said, listen, as it relates to our politics, our political behavior, our attitude, our practices in Trinidad and Tobago, this is something that we need to look at. And there's a responsibility, a role for us to play in ensuring that there are certain standards and high standards as such that need to be met. So, of course, thank you to all CSOs and to all members of the council who have worked and done their part in its creation. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for AM Prime this morning. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Thank you very much to my guests. There's a lot happening in Trinidad and Tobago. There's only so much that we can cover in 90 minutes. But we try our best. We want to give you as much information and education on an array of topics in the country, and there's so much to discuss in that regard. Of course, a lot of focus and attention is now what is taking place within the TTPS. So is there a coup? That is the question that is being asked. Well, with the information that we have thus far, it certainly seems to suggest something along the lines of a coup may have occurred, but you get more commentary from Sean Michael Small in a bit, and of course, more commentary from me later on, whether it be today or tomorrow. But stay tuned to WESN Content Capital for more throughout the course of the day. From our team in studio, Ryan Gomez, Brooke, and Milewood, thank you very much, of course, and Naomi McNish. Thank you for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Do have a good day today. It's February. Make it a fantastic one. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Between the Bank and the Gutter, a novel about street dwellers in Port of Spain. This is a book to make you both laugh and cry. Above all, it takes you to that special space that only street dwellers know. In this moving and riveting human interest story, Harry journeys from insanity to sanity while living on the streets of Port of Spain. Now available at Metropolitan Books, 12 Aripita Avenue, Woodbrook. Paper-based bookshop, 14 Alcazar Street, Woodbrook. WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. And the home store branches located at Barataria, Shogunas, and East Gates Mall. Autographed copies now available on request. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh. I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughter.